Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today you're going to check out episode 4 of the PillowTalk podcast, where we break down Titanic and we see if one of the greatest blockbusters of all time still holds up today. I think we're close to the 25-year mark for Titanic, so it was a good time to kind of bring up whether or not it holds up. We break down if it's actually a good movie or if it was just good for the time. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe to our video and to our channel. Leave some comments below. Let us know what movies you want to see us break down. And if you need to get your workout gear, go to Raise Rep Sports, use code Bizon, and you'll get 15% off your next order. All right, enjoy the video. So let's start off with the numbers. Obviously, it was record-breaking. It still holds a bunch of records, even with Avengers Endgame and Avatar surpassing it. But it was a $200 million budget. They grossed $2.2 billion. So it was okay. Not bad.
It did all right.
It did fine. Director was James Cameron. If you're watching this, you probably know movies. You probably don't need me to go through this, but I will. So James Cameron did Avatar, obviously, Titanic, Terminator, Aliens. He was kind of a juggernaut back in the day, and he's still flexing to current day. So he also did Rambo. So that's something to keep in mind too. So just to kick off, Titanic, obviously, reiterating, massive movie back in the day. Rewatching it again, I was, I think, like 10 or 11 when I first saw it. I'm 32 now. I watched it and I thought the plot was pretty ironclad for the most part. Like, it was a movie that, like, it's weird, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, it's a movie that you know the end. You know how it ends, and you still are sucked in the whole time. It was a huge character movie. It wasn't about the boat, which is kind of what a lot of those movies are. Like, it's called Titanic, so you think it's going to be about how the Titanic sinks, and it's not. It's a heartfelt movie about, a broken woman in a broken society. And I think there's just so many, metaphors in this movie that, like, there's just something to always grasp your attention. And James Cameron, I thought, wove it perfectly, where, like, he's not ramming down that women were inferior in the early 1900s, but he does tell you about it, and that's a point that you're kind of, it's in the back of your mind as an adult, and he's not ramming down your throat that, there was a class system, kind of still around today, but, like, if you had money, you were considered a better person, whether you were female or male. You were just a better person than people who didn't. And I think that style of writing was so out of the norm for what Cameron had done that it was brilliant. And then just the way that, like, you cared about everyone. It wasn't just Rose. It wasn't just Jack. It wasn't just, her mother or if you're going through Mr. Murdoch or the captain. It wasn't just one character or a group of characters. You knew everyone on the boat, and you had a relationship with everyone on the boat. Fabrizio, Ryan. You had these connections with the characters that was... It helped tell the story, but they weren't there just to tell the story. They were there so that you cared when the ship sank who lived, who survived, and why. Like, you didn't just want Fabrizio to live because he was Jack's best friend. You wanted Fabrizio to live because he saved an entire lifeboat, right? He got people off the ship at his own detriment. Like, he knew he was going to be swimming in the water, helping them, and he still helped the boat get off. And then some people you cared for the wrong reasons. Maybe you didn't like Billy Zane's character and you wanted to see
Billy
him die.
Zane.
Fucking Billy Zane. So I think there was just so much there to unpack. I unpacked it for about 3 minutes, but, like, I thought the plot was, like, almost untouchable. Because honestly, too, you can't really fuck it up. They're on a boat. You know,
and like you said, you already know the ending.
You know how it plays out, and they kind of like address that too. And maybe you'll talk about this more. They kind of address it in the beginning with that fucking blubbering idiot just being like going through his 3D model of how he tells the entire story of the Titanic in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. And it's like, okay, so we got this out of the way. You know how this movie's gonna end. He's talking to the audience like, you know the movie's going to end with the boat sinking. We're not going to change the wheel. But Rose is about to tell you the story as to, like, everything.
And I love that because, like, he goes down the whole thing and he's like, when he's doing, like, the whole model thing and it's blowing up. And then she's like, do you want to hear this story or not?
And it's kind of like a fuck you to everyone who knows, like, hey, you know how the movie's going to end, all right? You're not going to get a Michael Bay version of the Titanic here. Like,
yeah.
And I just thought that whole sequence, if you don't have that, it seems derogatory, right? But if you don't have it, it's kind of like the movie's missing pieces, right? Like, oh, okay, is the boat still gonna sink? Like, yeah, the boat's gonna sink, you know.
So I think also, like, kind of to reiterate some of this stuff, some stuff that I picked up on. So it's basically a fictional movie based on a true event. Like, you know, Jack as a character isn't real, and Rose as a character isn't real. Even though they're based on, like, real people, they're not actual real characters, you know, or real people that were on the ship. And it's really interesting on how they did that because they kind of also address that. Towards the end, when Rose is telling the story, and like, yeah, we checked your backstory, and there was no Jack Dawson on the ship, but they already addressed that in the very beginning because he won his ticket through a poker game. You know, like, James Cameron was spinning the wheels and already, like, figuring out a way that they could mend this fake character into a real event, and I think that was really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing. I think that, like, they not gonna hop on that too much longer, but the fact that you knew the story of the Titanic, like, I feel like everyone knows the story of the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
But he told you the story. And he told you, and he prefaced it with, like, the Bill Paxton stuff in the beginning. And, like, you didn't just dive into Rose. You dove into, like, where are we today? Here's where your mindset is. Now I need you to open your mind because we're going to tell you a story. And it was like, dude, brilliant. Fucking brilliant. Yeah. Filmmaking 101.
That's also seen, too, towards the end when Bill Paxton's on the deck of the ship talking to Rose's granddaughter, and he's like, oh, I was saving this until we found the diamond, and then he throws it overboard, and he's like, but this is the first time the Titanic's ever, like, spoken to me, or, like, taken me over, being as, like, he was there looking for the treasure, and he was going to rescue these relics, as he put it, but then as soon as Rose started telling the story, it's the first time that the Titanic actually meant anything to him, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, not to skip ahead, but, I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter. You're right, like, she tells her story with a few breaks in between, right, to remind you, like, hey,
reality.
Someone's telling you this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, at the end, when she's telling you about being in the water, you just see all these people in the room that were literally making jokes about it in the beginning of the movie, crying. They're all crying. The only one not crying was Bill Paxton, and he wanted to cry. So I think that's, like, so beautiful, right? And then when, to bring it back to when I was a kid, watching the Titanic sink, I'm watching it as, like, man, this is cool. Like, oh my God, the boat is going down and everything. As an adult, it's like, it's a little far-fetched that they survived everything they did, right? It's a little far-fetched. But not, like, unbelievable.
Right. I mean, so, like, I know, like, we had words about this before we started all this and all that, but James Cameron went to the NASA labs, like the weightless chambers and all that stuff, and the water chambers that they use, you know, to train astronauts in, and he actually went there with scale models and ran all these tests for months and months. He was there doing this so they could try and figure out, because at the time when all this stuff happened, James Cameron was actually funding expeditions to go down and view the Titanic, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, they couldn't find one half of the ship. So they were making all these models and trying to find like the paths in which the ship would take once it actually broke apart. So like he was actually doing all of this science and he was doing all the real stuff. And they went down there and they actually found the ship. And a lot of that footage is actually James Cameron's dives real footage. It's pretty cool. The fact that his science drove this movie. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
I mean, to bring into
yeah, a lot. I was gonna say a lot of prep work. Like he's definitely a top tier filmmaker, and
oh yeah,
he flexed it.
yeah, and to kind of harp on your point too, this came out in 1998, right? Is that what we said?
97.
97. So I was 9 years old, and I saw this in the movies, and I ran every gamut of emotions, every gamut. And we still have arguments to this day with who cried and who didn't cry when we were in that movie theater because it was a birthday party. Like we went for a birthday party.
That's a tough birthday party.
Oh man, it was like a 3.5 hour birthday party, you know, at the theater. But we still have arguments to this day. I think it's funny, like when I get together with my friends, we're like, yeah, but that time you cried at Titanic, you know, when you were 9 years old. You know,
Oh,
like
man.
we still have that argument.
See, like I didn't quite, and for me, I didn't like fully grasp that. Like I didn't. Yeah, it was sad and everything that, you know, spoiler alert, Jack doesn't make it at the end. But I think I was like so hung up on the action being cool, and like I was very into like boats and stuff like, so I thought it was cool to see like a famous ship sink. I thought I was wrapped up in that as a kid. As an adult though, you see like you see them fall in love. You see the guy you like get the girl, right?
The guy you don't like being an asshole.
Kind of getting, yeah. I mean, I think it would have been really lazy writing to kill Cal. So I like that they killed him off screen in like the most brilliant way imaginable. They said in the Depression he went broke and he put a pistol in his mouth. I thought that was beautiful. Like
I also thought there's something I noticed now that I had never noticed before. So we knew that Cal put the heart of the ocean in his jacket, and then he gave his jacket to Rose unintentionally, and then he realized immediately that he no longer had the diamond. So then when they're on the ship, Cal's walking around to see if Rose had survived, and Rose is hiding her face. She doesn't know that she has a diamond. She just doesn't want to be with him anymore. And the only reason why he was trying to find her was to get the diamond. Like I noticed that now, but I would not have picked that up. I definitely did not pick that up when I was younger. But I thought that was wild.
And you know what's even crazier too is that she didn't sell it; she kept it. I thought a brilliant like I think like just callback in the movie was she's the crazy old lady that gets off the helicopter with all this luggage and all this shit, right? Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, and Bill Paxton, it's like a funny moment.
Doesn't travel light, does she?
Yeah. And they set her up, and she's like, I gotta have my pictures. And then at the end, it breaks you. If you haven't already broke, it breaks you to see that she's doing all the things that she told Jack she would do. And
yeah, I literally wrote that down. Literally, my note from the plot at the end is just she did everything that Jack promised he would teach her.
Yeah, she did it all. And I mean, another callback, too, that I didn't notice until I was an adult was that they spent 5 minutes hawking loogies off the boat, right? And it's like a funny scene as a kid. I'm just like, I want to spit right now. Like, goddamn. Yeah. But then she breaks free from Cal by hawking a fucking loogie in his face.
Yeah, the funny is because he says hi to her mom and he's got the loogie right on his fucking lip. Yeah,
I just think that, like, that the whole... Cameron, and I'm going to harp on our previous podcast and how terrible the writing was. James Cameron literally took every detail, every single detail, and made sure that plot was fucking ironclad. And it shows. It doesn't show as a kid. It doesn't show on the first watch. You have to watch it like 2 or 3 times to pick up on all the subtleties. I mean, I've admittedly watched it way more than that, but like, yeah. Jesus Christ, man! What a brilliant plot.
I mean, and as you say too, as an adult, like how much of this could I actually understand as a kid too, right? So then you watch it again like with purpose now. Like I watched it intently so I could take notes and I could actually criticize the movie. But like how much stuff I notice now, like the captain realizing that the ship's going down, people are trying to ask him to do stuff, and he just ignores all of them and goes back to the bridge so he can, he can be on the bridge. And
Well,
the
hold on.
musicians.
Before you go on that, do you know why he went back to the bridge?
He goes down with the ship.
No. He goes back to the bridge and stops answering questions. And this, again, very subtle, and you have to watch it a few times. A woman with a fucking baby missed all the boats.
Oh, yeah, I saw her floating, too, and I saw her ask... She asked him, like, where do I go? And then he just ignored her and went to the bridge.
He broke.
Yeah.
He fucking snapped. And the second or third time you watch this, and I had to watch it twice just for this podcast, because I was like, there are so many subtleties that I'm realizing now.
So much.
So, like...
Every line has a purpose in this movie. Literally.
They go into a brief backstory on the captain, and they're like, this is his last ride. He's trying to get there a day early because of pressure from Ismay.
Turn on the last 4 pistons. We want to make good time. Yeah.
And like his pride forced them to go too fast, not knowing like that this liner can't make turns on icebergs. So he knew. The second they said we hit an iceberg, he knew it was his fault. And when this woman missed the fucking boat, he broke. And it was like, you know what? Now you cared about the captain. You wanted the captain to not go down with the ship, even though you know he's going down with the ship. Yeah. So like again, you knew all this was gonna happen, and you're just like, you needed to get to the why. Like, why? What are these people feeling?
Yeah. What's the part that broke them? And then you see like the crew members who are trying to like keep civility on the ship, and then they start, like the one that killed himself, because he accidentally killed a kid, and he broke himself too. And then you see the musicians who were playing music to try and keep calm, and then they said, "Okay, good luck to you," to each other, and then they all walked away.
When Murdoch shot Tommy, I was like, my man just went out like that. Like, I loved Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy was great. His very first scene ever was pretty great too.
Yeah, I just like, and he wasn't just there to move the plot. He gave you backstory as to like, this is a class. Emotion. This is a class system. You don't rank high enough to go talk to that girl. And then he brings back the class system when they're locked in the fucking basement and it's flooding, and he's like, they're not letting us out until the rich people get off. Like, what is this bullshit? Like, the smallest character probably had like 2 minutes worth of full screen time, and he gets shot, and it's just like, oh yeah, come on.
That's tough.
It was brutal, man. Go on about the band.
So yeah, and then the band's playing to keep the civility, and then one of them continues to play because he knows he's not going to make it, and everyone comes back to join them. Yeah. Like that's a really emotional moment too. That like you just don't really understand the severity of that. Like we know we're going to die, so what can we do to help even the littlest bit? Stuff like that.
I remember watching it the second time through, being like, all right, let's take a look at this escape plan they have. Right, Rose jumps off the boat. The lifeboat, to get back into the boat to be with Jack, which is like asinine, right? But like, if he's gonna die, she wants to die, and you know what, she was gonna kill herself in the beginning, so like I got it. I was like, you know what, she not afraid, fuck it,
if you jump, I jump.
Yeah, I mean, but like, just kind of like the nuance of like her getting off the boat to live, to get back on the boat. Logically, it's like, okay, dumb fuck, now both of you are in a bad spot, but like, you get it. Her life
emotionally
felt meaningless without him. I get it. That makes sense. Then everything starts going off, and they get to the top of the boat and everything, and Jack still doesn't have a life vest, which is kind of mind-blowing because people were rejecting life vests, and he couldn't get one. Or like there were kind of bodies on the boat. He couldn't get one. But that's like the littlest nitpick. When the ship goes down and he flies off, whatever, it all still felt grounded. And then you get to the door. Let's just address the door. Let's get this over with. And then we'll move on. Talk about like effects or something next. But like the door, he makes an attempt to get on the door, and it starts to flip. Over. Right? If
Yep.
they spun the door the other way and
Oh my god.
took Rose's life vest off and
Oh
put it
my god.
underneath, granted, bro, I mean, in the heat of the moment, who's thinking of that, right? Who's thinking of that? Fucking no one. He's in sub-zero temperature water. He's not thinking about this shit. All I'm saying is that Rose's life vest should have been ripped off. And then the argument's mute, right? Rose's life vest is gone. Neither of them have a life vest at some point. They're there. Now you can't talk about it. But if you put the life vest underneath the door, they both could have laid on the door.
Just okay. Saying. This is the question that Leo still refuses to answer to this day.
Well,
and I don't think two of them could have fit on the door. I think dramatic effect takes place. They showed him trying to climb on once, and he almost tipped it. And I guess you look at it with a clear mind and say that he could have put it on, but there's no way Leo's getting on that door. He's sacrificing himself to save the woman he loves, and that's that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is they also address like, hey, in another callback, right? The lifeboats were being filled to half capacity. Well, some of them. Like, probably, let's just say the first half were, because about halfway through the sink. It took them nearly 2.5 hours to think of consolidating the boats, and only one went back. That, it just screams to the way the class system worked and the fear of everyone, right?
Yeah.
I thought, like, the whole time, there was, like, 6 or 7 motifs involved here. And he just always found a way to not, like, in your face tell you that, like, hey, this is why. Not always that blunt, but subtly just like, hey, these are rich people that don't want to die. They think they got something to live for. They don't care about humanity. And, you know, it is what it is. And Molly Brown stands up at one point and says, like, what's wrong with you people? And they were ready to kill her for even suggesting going back for people.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Like, it was good, but as an adult,
I mean,
it just
it was also a realistic account of events that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, he did his research, and that's what happened. They weren't filling the lifeboats all the way, and it's stupid to think about nowadays, but, like, imagine, like, back then, 100 years ago, that's just the way it was. They took a vote, and they said, no, we're not going to go back and sink our own ship.
I get it. I get the fear of humanity is, yeah, I totally get it. But let's talk about how dope that fucking boat looked.
It looked good?
It looked fucking great, man. At no point did I think, and correct me, maybe you felt differently, with all the CG stuff we've seen, at no point did I think I was ever looking at a model boat. I always thought that I was looking at, like, a replica Titanic.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that, because I was, like, trying to nitpick the CG, and I didn't get any really from the ship. Sometimes, like, when it was falling apart, you're like, like, that's maybe, like, not so realistic, but, like, it was very, very close. The only CG that I really noticed is when they CG'd in the cold breath.
Oh, yeah, I honestly, I knew it was CG just because of behind the scenes stuff, but, like, I didn't think it looked fake.
Well, it's just, like, coming from a cold climate, like, we get really cold here in the winters, so, like, I know how, like, the breath would float when it came out of the mouth, and it kind of, like, they had it stick around for more, like, dramatic effects, so it stayed a lot lower, a lot longer.
Yeah.
It didn't dissipate as fast, so that's the only nitpick that I had, really, for a freaking 23-year-old movie.
Yeah, man. I mean, the boat looked real. The dolphins looked real that were, like, in the beginning when he's like, I'm the king of the world. I mean, I thought even when they were, like, they had opportunities where they could have fucked up the CG real easily.
Yeah.
Like when Fabrizio died because of the steam funnel thing.
Oh yeah, the steam stack.
Yeah, the steam stack falls on him, and that easily could have been fake. Instead, Cameron brilliantly slowed down and went frame per second on the CG, and it was so well done. You know, Uh,
And it's wild because like right up to that point too, they had like the camera angle at the top of the stack, and they showed all the cables snapping, and then like whipping into the water, and it looked like you're like, okay, yeah, so some like there's the camera at the top of the stack, and they're showing this. Like it looks really good.
it looks so good. I thought they did a really good job. The
Yeah.
bodies in the water. I mean, you want to talk about
Tough.
acting performances too. The guy checking the bodies, by the way, played Mr. Fantastic in Fantastic Four. That's all I could
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Um,
Awful, by the way, awful.
Awful movie, yeah. But a brilliant job of just being like keeping it together, but showing he's not together,
Yeah.
and saying no, we're gonna check him.
We're gonna find someone. We're gonna find someone. Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, what a great cast, great cast. You know, great performance by everyone, and like amazing job with the effects.
Yeah, I
So
do want to run it back though, because I do have one thing, and I want to kind of lump it with plot, but it's not really plot. So this movie, more than any other movie, so like I have a 70-inch TV, and I sit like 10 to 15 feet away from it, and I have a sound system with a subwoofer and everything else. This movie, watching it, a couple nights ago, made me miss the cinema experience.
yeah, I mean, this is a true blockbuster. You know,
Yeah,
this is a brilliant movie, start to finish, with high budget and a great story. Like, I mean, this is what you go to the movies for, right?
yeah. But more on top of that, I miss specifically this cinema experience where they play an hour and 50 minutes, and then they have an intermission where they can put the next reel onto the camera, and then you go get your snacks, you go to the bathroom, you fill up everything again, and then you go back and sit down in your seats, and then you watch another hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does bring us to the point too of the two tapes, right? It's the only movie I can think of that had two VHSs.
No, there's a couple. The Green Mile was on two tapes as well.
Was it?
Mhm.
I wasn't old enough to own the Green Mile. My parents would not allow that after I saw Aliens and couldn't sleep. Um,
Yeah, but like more so like because even in your home, like you can get up and go to the bathroom yourself and pause it and all this other stuff. Like what I did with this movie, I got to the point where the ship was about to start sinking. I paused it, went and took a shower, and then came back to it. Like I made my own intermission, but. Like as far as a cinema experience goes, that was my favorite. Like one of my favorite things about the cinema experience about this movie. Like you sit down and yeah, it's a long time, so you have that intermission so that you can it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds. Like you have the ability to reload your snacks, go to the bathroom and all that stuff without missing any part of the movie, but also have the cinema experience where like the big screen and the sound and the snacks and all that other stuff that you get from going to the movie house. And I miss that because like right now you go to Endgame and you're watching a 3 hour movie, or you go to see Avatar and you're sitting there for like 2 hours and 45 minutes without a break. It's just a lot.
yeah. No, I mean, do you remember when Titanic took the intermission?
It was right. It was like an hour and 40, an hour and 50 minutes in. It's like right when um is it it's not Murdoch. What the heck's his name? Where when the guy's like the ship will sink, and then like you have that conversation, you have like the grounding effect of like that scene, and then right after that it's intermission.
Okay, that's a good part right there.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost halfway through. So like Whitney was watching with me. She was like, "Oh, halfway through the movie," and then like we paused it, and she came upstairs and laid in bed, and I went and took a shower, and like we had our intermission, and I went back and watched the last half of it.
Yeah, I mean, intermissions are cool for longer movies, and I wouldn't hate if they brought that back, but like at the same time too, I'm the type of guy, once I'm locked in, I'm locked in. Give it to me, baby. You know?
Mm. See, like I'm more of the guy like I want to house a bag of popcorn and a drink in the first half of the movie, and I don't want to miss any of it. So
Right.
I love that 10-minute intermission, 15-minute intermission, so that you can go to the bathroom, refill your drink, refill your popcorn if you want, and then go back and just have a non-stressed experience on the second half of that movie, not worrying about, oh shit, if I get up now I could miss a really vital scene. You don't get that.
No, it's cool. I mean, there have been obviously times where I'm at the movies, so I feel the same way where I have to go to the bathroom, and Star Wars is the one that most recently comes to mind. I'm like, I don't want to miss anything, but dude, I gotta pee.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I could leave now, I could rush, and then all of a sudden you get to the bathroom and there's a line, and it's just and then it takes 10 minutes off of the movie. So
Right.
a lot can happen in 10 minutes in cinema world.
That's true.
So
What did you think of the cast though? As a whole.
I mean,
S
if you're
plus
gonna have
tier.
if you're gonna have an S tier cast, this is it, right?
It has to be, right? Yeah. I mean, you have Bill Paxton on screen for 5 minutes.
I know, and he's the smaller actor in this movie.
Yeah.
You got Leo, you got Kate, Billy Zane, Kathy Bates. Even though her role was kind of small, they they made her out to be the bullnosed American money woman.
Victor
David
Garber.
Warner,
Yeah.
Victor Garber, yeah, Jonathan Hyde,
Evan Stewart. Yeah, there's some major actors in here. And at the time too, Leo was still kind of coming into his own. But he had already
Kate Winslet was there already.
Yeah, Kate Winslet was basically a movie star. I mean, Leo just came off of Romeo and Juliet, so I mean, he had been headlining smaller movies, and Zane
And
was
Billy
Zane.
fucking Zane.
I mean, Zane, the Zane machine. But Victor Garber was a huge actor. I mean, Bill Paxton was obviously in Aliens and other, Twister and stuff like that. So Kathy Bates, no introduction needed there. I mean, everyone, Jonathan Hyde, Jumanji, everyone there was, they could have held their own. So that's why I thought it was beautiful. These types of casts, I think, is amazing, especially in a movie where people are going to die. You lose the who's going to die factor, right? You don't know.
Yeah, everyone's on the same level.
Yeah, and and remember when we were talking about Prince of Persia and we were the villain, I knew immediately because of eyeliner. I knew immediately because, dude, you don't bring in Ben Kingsley into a fucking B tier movie to just be there. Here, This could have been a C, B tier movie, but you have no fucking idea who's on the chopping block for a boat that's gonna sink.
Yeah, literally everyone's gonna die.
Everyone is gonna die. That, you're going into this all right, well, who am I losing here? And I mean, it was beautiful.
This is definitely an S tier cast, and then the very first 2 or 3 minutes that you see Rose with Billy Zane, with Cal, that Cal's the villain, and immediately that she already feels imprisoned, because she even said I'm going back across the ocean to my other prison, and stuff like that. So you already know who the villain is, but the outcome of the movie. So I guess the story is there. That the ship's gonna sink. You already know who the villain is, but you want to know how he becomes the villain that he is, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see the progression. I guess
it's just a weird way to look at a movie.
I guess you can see the decharacterization of Cal. He starts off very gentlemanly, very, proper.
And then he steals his bodyguard's gun and is firing shots at Rose.
By the end of the movie.
Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Stealing kids and being I have a daughter.
And paying off captains to let them onto lifeboats and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is Billy Zane as a villain in this movie is so multifaceted that it was I don't know if anyone pulls it off but Billy Zane. I don't think anyone makes you liked him in the beginning. You were wow, Billy Zane.
Yeah, he's trying to provide. He's he's rich, so he's just flowering his woman. But then she goes out to the back of the ship and she's wanting to jump off, and you're wow, that's really not a healthy relationship.
Right, and I mean he also too is I mean, take this for what you will. He's a good looking guy. So like he's a
I do.
handsome, rich. I mean, you don't
Hey,
have
Billy,
to.
hit me up.
Yeah, dude, he was in Phantom. He was the Phantom. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Billy Zane is a good looking dude, but he showed so much range as a villain. And I mean, we could also say like his dude Lovejoy was also a villain. His henchman, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Uh,
and he was like the cold. Like if you don't have Billy Zane, that dude is just a cheesy fucking 1-800 henchman
yeah.
guy.
No, he's like one of the officers on the ship. You know, like one of the, I
Yeah.
forget what they call them, but like the ones that like cuffed him and all that stuff, and then they released him and blah blah blah. You're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
And as the
But
movie
like,
goes on, you just see that Zane is like he's not a good guy, and
right, and I
he's
was
just
gonna say
making
that.
this guy do this.
So like this character is the character that as the movie goes on, you hate him so much more.
Yeah.
Every minute the movie goes by.
I mean, even when they know the ship is sinking, and you have Lovejoy and Leo in the compartment, like, and Leo's chained up to the radiator or whatever, and he's just playing with his bullets to see how far the ship is sinking.
Yeah.
And he still doesn't let Leo out, or even like put him out of his misery. He's ready to let him drown. It's like, okay, now I fucking hate this dude.
Yeah, seriously. No, yeah. It's true. But like yeah, like you said, this is an S tier cast. Everyone is at such a level professionally as actors and actresses that you're right though. You're like, okay, if they lose anyone to this ship, they're losing an A tier cast member, you know. But at
Yeah.
some point, we know it's gonna happen. So it was. I think it was very well done.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm bummed about is we didn't get closure on the mom.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that after because, like I said, watching this as an adult, I understood more things. So she took the name Dawson, Rose, when she got to port. They gave the name. She's Rose Dawson now. Um, she hid from Billy Zane. She hid from Cal Hockley because she didn't want to see him. And then she realized she had the diamond. But at no point in her life she was like, "Yeah, I'll go back and talk to my mom." Like that's weird to me.
Um, that didn't bother me so much that she didn't want to talk to her mom, because I get it. Like, I mean, her mom was a
I mean,
major
like not even
villain.
just to be like, "I'm alive." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if like she went to her mom's funeral and stuff like that. Like, would have been nice to have some closure there. But like, I get why the character just wouldn't want to reach out, because she probably would have forced her to call Cal, right?
Well, Cal. I mean, as soon as she heard Cal died, she could have reconnected with her mom and been like, "This is what I've been doing. I'm still alive."
They don't even address if her mom died.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like the only storyline. Like it's funny that you bring that up because I didn't even like. I thought of it like, why didn't she reconnect with her mom if she wanted to, get away from Cal? But like, it is true. Like that storyline ends on that scene where she doesn't want to go back into the dead bodies and look for any living ones, knowing that her daughter could be out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like,
Wild.
yeah. And then as far as, we talked about the two villains, and I think obviously the iceberg is a villain too, right?
Yeah.
Them not seeing the iceberg is so realistic because they were going so fast. Like,
And it was so dark.
I remember. Well, do you remember too? Mr. Murdoch at one point goes, "Did we find the binoculars for the crow's nest?" And they're
Yeah,
like,
I
"No."
noticed that too.
So like those guys are
Never
up
picked
there
it up before.
without binoculars, looking for icebergs that are like, aren't icebergs like 80% under the water? So like these guys stood no shot, and they were going way too fast. So like, I don't know. I thought that was cool. I thought that they took a moment away from Rose and Jack right after they had sex, and they were running from whatever.
Yeah.
They took a moment away from them where you could have been like, all right, let's watch them fall more in love and really connect. And they were like, no. You're about to watch the panic of the crew. And now we're shifting the tone from lovey-dovey to it's about to go down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so well done to introduce. I mean, it's an iceberg. It's not really a
Hmm.
villain. It's not sentient, but it was like, hey, the villain is here. The big bad of the entire Thanos just arrived with all 6 Infinity Stones, and he's about to snap his goddamn fingers. And I thought that
Yeah.
it was so well done.
So on that point more. So right, the iceberg is a villain because it's the only thing in between Rose and Jack in America, right?
Right.
That's gonna stop them. But I thought it was really weird too, and like the progression of this. So Jack had just got done drawing Rose, and then she put it in the safe with a note that says, "Now you can keep, your both of us in your safe," or something like that. And she's talking about the necklace in the
I
drawing.
think I know where you're going with this, and I was thinking the same thing, but continue.
So then they hit the iceberg, and then she's like, "We need to go talk to Cal."
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought, like, yeah.
And I was
So
like, "Why? You literally just broke up with him. You literally just put like your naked drawing in his face, and now you need to go back and tell him that the ship's sinking." And that's when Leo gets arrested.
And that goes all the way back to the point too about the mom, right? Like her whole thing was that she wants to go back and tell Cal and the mom that the boat got hit by an iceberg, and it's like, okay, but you love your mother enough to not let her die, but you don't love her enough to want to reach out later in life.
Yeah,
Like
weird. It's just weird.
that part was a little odd, but also too, like, what if they? My thing was that they were in the North Atlantic, so it's probably at minimum another day or two trip, right, back to America.
Hmm.
You broke up with Cal, and you're with Leo. Where the fuck do you think you're gonna hide for 2 days? Like, where
Yeah,
are you gonna hide?
and it's funny because like right before that part, they were like, "It's a ship. Where else could she be?
Yeah,
Find her."
like my thought in my head, I'm like, okay, they could take a lifeboat in the middle of the night and just fucking leave. I don't know how they'll do it, but they could do that. Maybe the people below deck in E class were gonna cover for them, but like at some point, the authorities are gonna be like, we're looking for a missing woman.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand the logic of leaving it there then, but I guess for storytelling purposes, you kind of had to show that she.
Yeah. Because after that point, the whole movie has to progress to shit's going down.
Yeah, but like
So
I just
they had to
didn't.
tie up the love story part there, and then just maintain it through the tragedy.
The other thing too is like, okay, Cal and Mother have money. They're getting on a boat. You just saw an iceberg hit. Why the fuck don't you just go take the tarp off one and just sit pretty and wait? Be like, nope, I'm here. You're not taking me off. Or
Yep.
Jack couldn't have been that old. Just be like, I'm a child. I'm 17. Let me get in this boat.
Mm.
He could have passed for a kid. He has baby face and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought they were that whole decision to go to Cal and Mother was story driven. Like we gotta get Jack fucked up so that Rose doesn't get on a boat.
Mm.
And it wasn't lazy. Like it's well thought out. And
Yeah. No.
maybe that's why we don't know about the mother, because maybe Rose did reach out, but like
Yeah, you never know because like it looked like she was literally like at the very beginning she was just sitting in this ridiculously nice sun porch making pottery. I think she was still well for money, so maybe she did.
yeah. Did they ever explain what Rose did after the Titanic? She married, right?
Yeah, she
But
married. She had a couple kids.
but it doesn't say that like her husband was wealthy, or it just says that she married, right?
She was widowed. Yeah.
So the husband must have made some decent money.
Yeah, and I don't know, but like you said, all the pictures are her riding horses and her
Flying
doing this and her
airplanes
doing that.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So she
So,
lived a great life, but yeah. I don't know. Did you identify any other villains?
no, not really. Not
Yeah.
anything obvious, at least. But I mean, like you do have, the person who built the ship and then the person who designed the ship. And like, you could kind of see them as villains because they were so cocky that they
It's
didn't put enough life jackets on. They didn't put enough lifeboats on.
Ismay,
So like,
yeah.
yeah, so like they're so cocky that the ship won't thing that they're like, oh, and I
Even
think
while
they
it's
even like,
sinking, even while it's sinking, he's like, "But the ship can't sink." It's
yeah, I
like,
know,
what?
and then he's like, oh, it will sink. Yeah, but then even then like, oh, I wanted to double up on the lifeboat so we'd have enough for everyone, but they said that it took up too much room on the deck, so they had me they overruled my decision, and I was like, that's just a fucking like, that is like a cocky thing to do, right? Like I'm so sure that everything's gonna be fine. That we want more people, we want people to be able to walk around on our ship instead of worry about life.
I mean, Mr. Murdoch or Mr. Andrews and Ismay, like both, they showed like, I thought it was brilliant what they did with those two.
The
Ismay was the
humility at
one.
the end.
Ismay like paid and built the ship, and Andrews designed it.
Right.
So Andrews, like, he ends up going down with the ship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ismay sneaks his way onto a boat. And I was like, that right there is like exactly the human factor that you needed to see to show like when your back's up against it, who's a man, right?
Yeah.
And Andrew's sneakily going around telling everyone like that he cares about the boat's going down. Get to a boat. Giving out life vests and E-deck. Like doing his best, and Ismay just trying to like not come to grips with that the boat is sinking.
Yeah.
And that he's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you recall too, but in the beginning when Bill Paxton was talking to the old lady about the insurance claim on the necklace, Ismay's the one who claimed it.
No, it was Hockley.
But it was through Ismay. Because remember
Oh.
he claimed the insurance claim.
No, so they said that Cal Hockley's dad is the one who took out the policy.
Right.
And they took it out a week before the ship launched, and then they filed it.
Because that's when he bought it.
Right, and then they filed it right after the ship sank.
Yeah, but Ismay filed it to help with the Titanic debt.
That's how I don't know if I got that part. Because when she got to the ship, they're like, okay, so who took out the policy? And I thought she said it would be under a gentleman named Hockley.
Yes.
And then that's how they knew that she was telling the truth about it.
They knew that she was telling the truth when she said that Ismay filed the claim for it, though.
Oh.
He claimed it on the Titanic, not Hockley. Hockley knew that she had it, so he wasn't making the claim. He was trying to find her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
no, I didn't put that together.
I was like, oh, ultimate villainy. Ultimate. Like, till the bitter end, just thinking about money.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was cool. I thought they did a good job making him a subtle villain. And, like, showing you the two sides of the coin. Like, there were greedy people.
Yeah, like, he's sitting there with the family on the first night, and they're having, like, their tea, and Molly Brown, you know, Kathy Bates' character, is not having any part of it, and Rose is speaking up against him, and like it goes to show the class thing and all that stuff. But then, like, you know, Bruce Ismay, Jonathan Hyde's character, he's literally just saying how awesome the ship is and how great he is and all this other stuff, and then,
yeah. I mean, overall, the movie was fantastic. I totally think it holds up, and I'm so happy.
That begs the question: does it hold up?
I just think that the only nitpick I have of the entire movie is that, I mean, besides, it's just that decision, right, to go back and, like, see Cal and the mother. I thought everything else was well done where, like, Rose wasn't really Jack's friend at the beginning. Rose owed a debt, and she paid her debt like a human being, treating him like a human being. And slowly she fell in love with him. So it wasn't like it was love at first sight like Romeo and Juliet. It was, she was going to kill herself. He got her off the boat. I think plot-wise, everything was well done. It was just that one little piece was my only nitpick, just because I think, like, logically, as I'm watching it, obviously knowing how it ends, I'm like, if I'm a survivor, I'm thinking, let's pull the tarp off one of these lifeboats and just go sit and wait. And they're going to have
Yeah.
to let us go.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess that kind of feeds into the next point, right? And that'll be our scores. So do you want to go first?
Yeah, I for every reason that makes this movie great, and we just spent a little while talking about it. I think the plot is amazing. It has fantastic progression. It's basically fictional, but they tie it into real world characters and events. They ground everything in reality, even though the plot is following two fictional characters. The effects are great for 23 years old. Like when we touched on Starship Troopers, like those graphics really held up as well. And I think that these do as well. And not to mention like the S plus cast that they had in this movie. Um, Clear villains, and like you said, every single line, every single character drove progression in this movie, and not there wasn't a single time you're like, it's a meaningless scene. Like this movie was 3 hours and 15 minutes, and it needed all 3 hours and 15 minutes to make it what it is. I gave this movie an 85 out of 100.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, then I thought the movie was about as close to perfect of a blockbuster as you can get. It's not a monster movie. It's not an action movie. It's to its core. It's a love story. But it was a love story that was revolving around a very real event, a very traumatic event in American history, I guess world history. And it was, it wasn't just a movie that they rolled out to revolve around the boat, and it would have been so easy to just be like, it's about the boat. No, it's about two characters really finding who they are, changing in the course of a week, and really finding love and realizing that, there's more to life than just the the things that you can hold and touch.
Yeah.
And then how they deal with it being ripped away from them in a blink of an eye without any causation of their own. So I thought that was really good. I gave it a 95 out of 100. I think it's about as perfect as you can get without being perfect. I think the movie is legendary, and will forever be considered one of the greatest films of all time, start to finish. Its only downfall, I think, with critics and even with people, is that it's just too long. But I think that, to your point, you needed every second of those 3 hours and 15 minutes. I really think you did. So, that being said, our combined score is a 90. Just perfect movie.
Yep.
I think this is easily the highest movie we have on our
Easily.
scale. Yeah. I mean, and no regrets so far. I mean, this earned it.
Yeah. And to like bring it back around, like everyone already knows what the end of this movie is going to be, and it's just the journey and how you get there. And I think that's a really interesting way to tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple ways to look at it too. Like, and obviously, if you've never seen the movie and you're watching this, sorry we spoiled some of it, but I think it's like common knowledge. What happens.
The boat sinks.
The boat sinks. I mean, Jack dies. I mean, it's like an ongoing conversation. But if you haven't seen the movie, you're doing yourself such a disservice by not watching it. It's arguably the greatest love story, and I know people younger are like Twilight, and no. This movie is everything you need from an action, emotion, suspense, thriller level. This is everything but sci-fi. This is deep. It's a little bit of a mystery as to, how some things unfold in the movie without going too deep, but like how Jack gets framed, where Rose is. It's just an overall amazing movie, and I think a 90 is a perfect score for it.
And like I said, so I think this is a more perfect cinematic experience too. So like I really enjoyed the 15-minute intermission on this, and I think that the big screen and the sound is great, but like the actual experience that it was to be in the theaters. And if this ever does come around, because I know we have some retro theaters around us that do like old movies, if this ever does come back around, it's something that the experience itself should be enjoyed.
Well, they are re-releasing it for the 25th.
Holy smokes! Well,
Yeah. So
I'll get my tickets already.
Yeah, I mean,
An IMAX.
you know what's great about this too is that like this movie. The cool part about this movie is like nowadays, big blockbusters, big high generated movies like Marvel and DC rely on other movies to get them to where they are, or like the big blockbusters really rely on star power to get them to where they are. This movie broke every single box office record there was at the time, and it was two virtually young actors.
Carried it.
Yeah, I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio literally had Romeo and Juliet and What's Eating Gilbert Grape as his like star-studded performances, and Kate Winslet had Hamlet, which she literally fresh came off of, but she also had like Kid in King Arthur's Court, which is a campy Disney movie. Like they were relatively unknown, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but Matthew McConaughey was supposed to be Leo.
I did hear that, yeah.
So like, imagine that. Like, we talked about how Bill Paxton and all these Billy Zane could be the only Cal in this movie and it worked. I don't know if this movie works with anyone other than Leo.
I agree. Yeah.
And Kate Winslet, I mean, you could have just put another pretty face there, but they put a pretty face with an amazing acting range. She covered up that British accent. She did so fucking well. So if you're any sort of fan of movies and you haven't seen Titanic, stop watching. Put it in. It's like $4 to rent. Easily the best $4 you'll ever spend.
Me and Whitney actually bought it. $17. We spent the money so we could have it.
It's totally worth. So
it is. It 100%. Even 23 years later, it's worth it.
Start to finish, perfect movie. Well, as close to perfect as you can get, I guess. But I guess we'll find out in the next podcast. We're doing The Fifth Element, and it's kind of ironic because it's our 5th podcast, so that'll be cool.
Hey.
Definitely make sure to like and subscribe. Let us know below if you've seen Titanic, what you liked, what you didn't like about it. If you haven't seen Titanic, let us know how you feel after you see it. Definitely very interested to hear everyone's feedback, considering this is probably going to be one of the highest movies we rank. Definitely want to know how you guys feel about us doing bigger blockbuster movies, and let us know if there's anything you want to suggest for us to do in the future, all right? Thanks, everyone.
Peace.